It won't surprise anyone to hear that Ubisoft is being extremely greedy yet again, and even though they're already facing a plethora of problems with Star Wars Outlaws, now we have another to add to the list because we know that you need the season pass to play Star Wars Outlaws Jabba the Hutt's Gambit mission. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, I've already covered Star Wars Outlaws in depth with the fugly controversy and, of course, the fact that it requires an online connection to install it, even from the disc. I mean, this game so far has been just a disaster for them, but now we have another scam. It says if you want to play the Jabba the Hutt mission in Ubisoft's upcoming Star Wars Outlaws, it'll cost you dearly. In order to play the single-player game's day one exclusive Jabba mission, you'll need the single-player game's season pass, and the only way that you can get that right now via pre-order is with the gold or ultimate editions of the game or with Ubisoft Plus Premium. So that is an extremely hefty price tag. It says the base game costs you $70, of course, but the gold edition will set you back $110, and the ultimate rings in at $130. So right off the bat, if you are pre-ordering the $70 edition, you will not get access to this exclusive quest, this day one exclusive quest. Of course, Ubisoft is a big corporation and they always want to extract as much money from players as possible, but this, of course, is, definitely more than we expected, definitely a worse situation than a lot of people anticipated because, of course, Outlaws has not gone over well so far. People have been highly criticizing it, but to hear that there's going to be a day one exclusive quest is not a good thing. It says Justice K is putting together a crew for the Canto Bite heist. She receives a job from Jabba the Hutt himself, the mission describes. Turns out that ND5 owes Jabba a debt from years ago and he's come to collect. Ubisoft truly thought that this was going to go over well, weaponizing nostalgia in an attempt to extract $40 to $60 more out of its audience. Players were already angry when they saw a single-player game had a season pass to begin with, and that it required the online connection to install it, even from the disc, plus the fugly K-Vest controversy. This is just not a good situation overall. Now, of course, they probably will end up selling the season pass separately, but to get the full day one experience and all of the content, it's behind a very expensive version of the game. And what is even worse is the fact that they have responded and they do not seem to care at all whatsoever. So not only is the pricing exuberant, but even though they're locking day one content behind the season pass, they're ultimately trying to write it off as insignificant. As you can see, Star Wars Outlaws' pricey extra Jabba the Hutt mission is optional and additional. Well, my purchase of a video game is actually optional and additional, so that seems like a good enough reason to not purchase it. That's definitely not the answer that they want. But if this is so insignificant and it's so optional and additional, why isn't it included in the base game? The Ultimate Edition should be $99.99, and it should be just like every other game, which usually comes with bonus cosmetics, soundtracks, art books, and steelbooks, but companies typically don't lock content behind them, and for good reason, because this is definitely going to upset a lot of people. But their response in a nutshell was, you don't need it. So yeah, I mean, if I don't want to experience all of the content that was made for the game, then I don't need it, but otherwise people are going to want it. It's different and definitely not to be confused with other companies who, after the launch of the game, release a DLC add-on missions like Owlcat did with Wrath of the Righteous. Over the course of 2+ years, they released more than 6 DLCs that include new classes and missions and story content, and they called it a season pass for lack of a better name, but they're basically just DLC packs. It's them packaging DLC together that was initially sold separately, which you can still buy individually, and it's not required. You could buy number 4, skip number 5, and go for number 6 if you wanted to, which is great. Plus, this wasn't at launch, it was over years, which is definitely standard for games. When a good product comes out, you want them to release new content. So that wouldn't be the problem, but that's not what this is. This is day one, locked behind very expensive versions of the game. And again, they're weaponizing nostalgia to try to extract 40 to 60 more dollars out of its audience. And they were already facing scrutiny. People were already not happy with them. Ubisoft Star Wars Outlaws faces massive backlash over absurd release pricing, protagonists' in-game model looking worse than the real-world actress. It is so sad to see this happen because, you know, there are so many people out there who loved Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor and will see another open world Star Wars game and go, oh, I can't wait to play this if it's anything like those other games, and they're going to support them. And I really loved Jedi Fallen Order, and Survivor was not as good in my opinion, just because I felt the narrative in the game was not as strong. I felt that the story was a little bit more lackluster than the first game, but it was still a pretty good experience. And I know that a lot of people, when we initially saw Star Wars Outlaws a few months ago, they were like, oh, this is going to be so good if it's anything like these other games. But we can clearly tell at this point that it's not going to be. So far, the gameplay seems pretty repetitive. The character models definitely are not that great. And if you look at something like Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, Cameron Monaghan looks perfect within those games. So developers can make characters that look almost identical to their real world counterpart, but they decided not to here. And of course, we also have just the absurd base game pricing. You know, a standard version of the game is $70, the gold edition is $110, and then the ultimate is $130. I'm sorry, but $130 is just unacceptable. And what's even worse is the fact that $110 edition doesn't come with half the stuff. Like, usually with a game, you're paying $99.99, like Starfield, for example. You got the digital soundtrack, the digital art book, you got extra cosmetics, but all of those are only in the $130 Ultimate Edition, where the 110 version really only comes with like 2 cosmetic packs and then the base game, so it's really not worth it. And they thought that this was going to go over well with people, and of course, it never was going to, especially for a single player game. There are plenty of titles that have season passes / battle passes that are free to play, like Apex Legends and Fortnite, right? And people don't complain because they want to monetarily support the game, but they're also not paying an initial upfront cost. But when you have a game that you're charging full price for at release, it's just unacceptable to, first of all, charge these prices, and second of all, lock story content behind a paywall. And as you can see over on Twitter /X, lots of people are talking about it, saying this is absolutely ridiculous. This is not acceptable. I'm not going to support them. You see, kids, once upon a time, there was a company called Ubisoft. Yeah, Ubisoft used to be a pretty good company. I wouldn't say that they were perfect. No company was perfect, but they at least kind of listen to consumers. That's definitely not the case anymore. Ubisoft really doesn't want people buying this at launch. Do they? No, they clearly don't, judging by all of the decisions they've made with it so far. Wait, is this one a quadruple A or just a triple A game? Yeah, they previously tried to say that Skull and Bones was a quadruple A game and that gamers were lucky they didn't charge more than $70 for it, but I don't think that they're going to face a lot of success with Outlaws. Triple A, quadruple A, whatever they want to call it. Highly anticipated. That's laughable. This game is dead on arrival. Tons of people saying that this is just an extremely disappointing situation to be in, especially when we're talking about such an iconic character like Jabba the Hutt. Yes, he will still be in the base game, but clearly they are putting content behind a paywall day one, which is totally and completely unacceptable. It's not like it's a full DLC drop where you're getting a new area, you're getting tons of missions, you're getting story expansions. That is not the case here. I will, of course, be keeping my eye on Star Wars Outlaws going forward, but it is already a nightmare for Ubisoft. It doesn't seem like anything's going to change before release in just a few months, but they are definitely facing a heck of a lot of scrutiny. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.